What is up, guys? Liquid Redneck here with another video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different type of video. It's going to be about cryptids. Now, for those of you who do not know what a cryptid is, cryptids are defined as animals whose existence is unsubstantiated. Now, the study of cryptids is called cryptozoology, and a lot of you may have heard that term. I'm sure most of you have heard of a cryptid. It's the most popular here in America is Bigfoot. There's the Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie as it's called. There's the Chupacabra in Mexico and South America. So, lots of cryptids out there, lots of legends, and so I'm sure you guys have heard some of those tales. Well, I am a huge buff of the unexplained, the paranormal, cryptozoology, and I love reading these stories and telling these stories and just watching videos, all the stuff related to it. Love it. And so I would love to start reading stories like this on the channel. If you guys like it, subscribe, like, comment. I am so thankful for all the new subscribers I have. You guys are absolute heroes, my total heroes. If you want to see more of these, let me know, and there will be more to come. Oh, and I've set a goal. By the end of the summer, I want to get to 100 subscribers. That would be absolutely amazing. So if you guys could help me get to that, it would just be amazing. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get to the story. This story is from a book called Phantoms and Monsters: Bizarre Encounters. And I'll put a link to the book in the description to the Amazon page. Okay. The Snowman. I grew up in a rural area of Calhoun County, West Virginia. The land we lived on had been in my father's family for many generations, and was surrounded by hundreds of acres of woodlands. My sister and I were raised to respect our elders and not to question our parents. Our parents stressed attending and succeeding at school. My father was what you would call a handyman. There wasn't much that he couldn't do, even though he hadn't received much schooling. My mother was a homebody and didn't care much about traveling about. My sister and I were warned about the dangers in the world, especially those dangers close to home. Both our parents used to talk about the Snowman. This was a terrifying spirit that lived in a hidden burial mound for most of the year. It would rise from the mound after the first snowfall and roam the area each night until the last frost. The Snowman was feared by the Mingo people who once lived here in the early 1700s. My father told us that there was a great massacre of Mingo people one night, not far from our home. The Snowman gathered the bodies and carried them to his hidden mound. He described the Snowman as a tall, rotund being with long white hair all over the body. But the most terrifying aspect was that the Snowman had no face, just long white hair draped over from its head. We were warned not to venture out in the dark. The house was kept quiet during those winter nights because we didn't want to draw attention of the Snowman. In January 1979, my sister and I were both early teens. One evening around 8 p.m. we were in the kitchen doing homework at the table. Our father walked in from the living room and grabbed his coat by the door, then stepped out into the night. I asked my mother what he was doing, and she told me that he had forgot to bring in the firewood for the night. No sooner had she responded to my question, my father rushed through the door. He grabbed one of the kitchen chairs and wedged it on the door. Then he opened the cellar door and retrieved his 12-gauge shotgun and a handful of pumpkin ball shells. What had he seen? He stood at the door and said, "Snowman, he's out there." I ran upstairs to the attic so I could get a look out the window. My sister was right behind me. For almost 10 minutes we noticed no movement. Then my sister said, "Look at the garden." There it was. It was huge, maybe 8 feet high. It would stand, walk a few feet, then crouch down, digging into the hard frozen ground. It continued to do this for several minutes. Then it stood up and moved closer to the house. Father was correct. There were no facial features. A second or two later, it turned and moved into the woods. I never saw it again. My mother is still with us and continues to live in the old house. She says that she has heard screaming at night, but believes it's the spirits of the Mingo people killed by the Snowman. Alright, now that type of story is not one that you necessarily hear a lot of. I mean, you hear stories about like abominable snowmen or yetis, which are usually what they're called, but you'd rarely hear of, something called the Snowman, in America and stuff like that. That's interesting. The second story is called In the Shadows. Around 1991, my mother, one of my cousins, and I were coming back from a school concert. At the time, we lived in a rural part of the county. We were 3 miles from our home when my mother hit the brake real hard. I was in the back seat sleeping, and my cousin was sleeping in the front passenger side. I heard a hard thump, and then my mom hit the gas. I asked what happened. She screamed out, "I just hit a werewolf." My cousin's eyes were wide open, and she couldn't talk at all. My mother told me more details when we got home. Before she hit it, she noticed a car on the side of the road up ahead. When she came up to it, the creature jumped right in front of our car. She was going about 45 when she hit the brakes. It landed on the hood of the car. Its face landed on the windshield. It had black fur and red eyes, a long mouth open to reveal a large set of teeth. Definitely not a guy in a suit. It pushed itself off the car, leaving claw marks. My mother told me that the last time there was one in the area was over 20 years ago. I believe it was in 2001. I worked maintenance between 10 and 4 a.m. For about a week, I heard weird sounds coming from the back of the building, which has thick brush, not the typical animal sounds. One night, I heard a loud crash coming from the side entrance. I investigated to find a large garbage can was thrown on top of the roof and rolled off. I was thinking, kids, until I got a strong whiff of something nasty. It wasn't the trash. Then I was thinking, skunk ape. I quickly picked up all the trash and went back into the building. The next night, I was traveling between the two buildings when the thick bushes started shaking. I heard an animal make a horrible sound, like it was being choked. I ran into the lighted parking lot and turned around. I saw a large humanoid shape appear out of the brush, and it went back in. A couple of nights later, my mother was waiting to pick me up when she saw a large shape come under a light and by the side entrance. It suddenly noticed her and went back into the shadows. A week passed without incident. Again, my mother was waiting to pick me up when she heard a couple of dogs barking close by. She turned to see a large hooded man walking behind the car. He was across the parking lot on the side of the road. The dogs belonged to a couple of trailer folks nearby. These dogs travel in a pack of 4 to 5 and weigh between 60 and 90 pounds. They were running around a man, barking and snapping at him. One of the large dogs got a hold of his arm. Then my mother saw the man's face. It wasn't a man under that hood. A head of a black wolf became visible. The unearthly being shook, and then threw that dog like a doll. The rest of the dogs ran for their lives. The hooded creature walked into the nearby woods. The next night was a full moon, and I heard its unearthly howl. We never heard and saw it again. Now a housing project occupies the land where it once lived. Now, that's an interesting story. It was a little spastic. I mean, you go from, the encounter when they were, younger teenagers, it seems, and then when they're in the car with their mother, and then you go to when he's working retail. So that kind of, was a few jumbled into one. It's interesting he thought it was a skunk ape, which means he may have some knowledge of cryptids. The skunk ape is a Bigfoot-like creature, which they call the skunk ape because it smells awful, allegedly. And it's, but no, apparently it turned out to be a werewolf, according to the author. And so, yeah, two interesting stories. There's a lot more that I would like to read to you guys. If you guys enjoyed it, just let me know. One cryptid I'd like to get into, which is my favorite cryptid, is the Wendigo. And those are some really creepy stories related to that alleged animal. Or, well, not animal, spirit. Anyway, this has been another video. I hope you guys like it. Let me know. And I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.